We're going to take another minute. Did you want to start now, Emily?
Yep, you can go ahead, Randy.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to CDW Nutanix Coffee Chat. We're going to talk about hypervisor alternatives. My name is Randy Evans. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect at CDW, and I'm joined by Denis Vanier, National Sales Manager at Nutanix, as well as a number of other special guests. So I have just a few slides about CDW, just to set the stage, and then I'll hand it over to Denis to get into the core content. We're going to have a question and answer session towards the end, and then we will have our gift card poll question for everybody to fill out at the end. So starting with CDW, CDW's got a long illustrious history. We can see some Canadian content on this timeline back to 2003 when CDW started under that name in Canada. And the other one I would bring attention to is over in 2019, where CDW acquired Scalar Decisions and really became a full-service enterprise one-stop shop for everything from services integration, managed services, as well as products, hardware, software, cloud, everything. So moving on to the next slide, we can see that CDW is across the world. Headquarters is in Chicago. We've got the rest of the world outside of North America covered in a number of different offices and locations, mostly reporting back to the UK. And on the next slide, we can see that in Canada, we have offices in every city that has an NHL team, plus a few more. And you see our numbers of coworkers there. We're getting up towards 1,000, and including close to 100 solutions architect, which are my team members. Excuse me. Right. So in addition to the solutions architect like myself that are involved in a lot of the scoping and shaping of projects, we have professional services, we have network operations centers, security operations centers, redundantly located in Calgary and Toronto, as well as all sorts of technicians, penetration testing, you name it, we can cover those services. And going on to Nutanix, on the next slide, we can see that we are globally Nutanix #1 partner since 2009. We were the first reseller of Nutanix, so we go way back. Moving down the numbers, you can see that we're heavily involved in Nutanix, have been for a while, and continue to go strong with Nutanix. So yay CDW, yay Nutanix. If there are any questions, by the way, please type them into the chat, and we'll have our moderators view those, which we'll either answer in text online. We could bring them up in our question and answer interactive period towards the end of the presentation, or we can follow up with you afterwards. And my final slide is to introduce Denis. Denis will be covering the core content of this presentation. Denis is the National Sales Director of Nutanix with countrywide customer contact, coast to coast to coast. So we look forward to hearing from Denis' experience. Take it away, Denis.
Thanks, Randy. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you to the CDW team for facilitating this coffee chat session. Certainly wanted to chat about what's on top of mind for many people around the acquisitions the acquisition that's been made by Broadcom. And so just wanted to share a bit where Nutanix is around that. And obviously, we're really at the heart of digital transformation for customers. And as Nutanix led the way around hyperconvergence, it has evolved into a hybrid multi-cloud platform, decoupling the software from the hardware literally, and permitting the software to be run or executed in any elements of the operating environments you might have, from the edge to the data center to the public cloud. And obviously here I want to share that as we go through the country, meet many organizations of different types, from enterprise to commercial to public sector. Organizations are really trying to get benefits from the public and private clouds, and really try to optimize cost and business value from the investment they've made. But the ultimately also is to de-risk the enterprise or the organizations they're in. And so this is really where Nutanix can help. And to tee up the conversation here is really about talking about the industry as a whole. And I wanted to share a bit some of 3 elements that are facts now to the industry, and how we are addressing that with Nutanix. First and foremost, it will be a hybrid multi-cloud world. And so this is something that's very significant. Everybody thought, we saw the evolution initially at the onset that public cloud would be the way to go only, and it's not the case. What we can say is cloud is not a destination, it really is a IT operating model. And what we've seen is the cloud adoption strategies from customers has evolved from a cloud first strategy to a cloud smart strategy. And we'll build on that to discuss this. What we have found is cloud cost post pandemic is really a top concern for organizations of all areas, of all worlds. And so this is where customers are faced with, do all workload belong into the public cloud or not? And it's not the case effectively. And so we are focused at trying to drive an experience where we will move the workload into the right operating environment. Is it worth it to be put in the public cloud? Is it worth it to be put into private cloud? It could be the inference with AI be done at the edge, because this is what we're going to see more value. And so it's about managing workloads and data and finding the right area to run it and execute that information. Obviously, what we're seeing is a huge explosion of both applications and data across the industry. I mean, we're seeing more and more of data being created at the edge. We're seeing zettabytes of data has been created. 90% of it has been created over the last 2 years. And that is a big concern. That proliferation of data is asking a lot of attention. And what is suggested is that 40% of any data that's going to be created at the edge will never see a spindle of a data center or the public cloud. It doesn't make sense to put all that data into those data centers or clouds, as it will be very expensive and will be deterrent to performance. And so as this is occurring, it creates complexities, it creates requirements to view the data across all operating environments. So that's a big implication of what is happening in the industry. The third one, and the elephant in the room here, is really the acquisition of VMware by Broadcom. And very often organizations are looking for a hypervisor alternative, really ESX, but in reality, what we are looking for is really an application stack. VMware or Broadcom really has a full complete stack, and effectively, how do we move away or reduce that risk, that footprint of VMware within organizations, as that acquisition is putting a lot of pressure on pricing structure with different licensing models that we have seen in market. So these would be the 3 market facts we want to address. But as we're looking into this, we're saying, how do we create that experience that customers have lived or are looking for, rather, from hyperscalers, right, and public cloud? And so what you're seeing here is a typical data center. It would be at Google. It's a rack. It's a data center with racks and racks and rows of x86 servers. And these are running software-defined applications, so that you're servicing networking, storage in a software-defined manner. So software data center centers are really what we're trying to create in a private setting also. That experience will help at reducing costs, simplifying environments, your operating environment operations. That's really what we're trying to generate, that same experience. And luckily, well, actually, Nutanix was founded on that architecture, that web scale architecture that we find in hyperscalers. Founded in 2009 by three individuals, two from Google and one from Oracle. They have brought up exactly that web scale architecture that we find in hyperscalers to be put into our private clouds. And so when you actually map your cloud journey, the first step is really to modernize your infrastructure and really to simplify it, to reduce the number of technologies you're using, and to reduce the number of that. Actually reducing those technologies, the number of technologies will not require as many people to support. You won't have the skill sets that you'll require, all the expertise for each of the technology that were in place. You're simplifying the environment. But once you've modernized it, did data center consolidation, consolidate your storage, offer your different services around VDI or database services and so on and so forth. The next step into your cloud journey would be to deliver IT as a service, and that's around automation, orchestration, creating your own catalog and services catalog and portal for your users. And so as you're doing this, you're looking also to have tools to do your chargeback, showback strategies and cost governance. So all of this is really the next step once you've done this. So if you bring modernizing infrastructure and deliver IT as a service together, that actually constitutes a private cloud. And then how do you integrate the workloads and the data into the public cloud is the next step. And ultimately, 74% of customers are saying that they will be a multi-cloud in a multi-cloud environment, meaning that they will have perhaps AWS instances, Azure instances at the same time, or even Google instances. So customers are not saying they're going to adopt a single public cloud. It's going to be multiple. So, but what happens is you need expertise. You'll be managing you have some management planes across all of those vectors, and that's very difficult to adapt, or because there's too many skill sets that you will require. And so when we use Cloud Smart as a strategy as opposed to Cloud First, it's really not a situation when you're saying Cloud First against private cloud against public cloud, that is. And so here, the situation is take the best of both worlds, realize, depending on the workloads, the tasks and everything, where you should be bringing that workload or that data, giving you way much more capabilities for innovation. So at Nutanix, we don't have a bias for a specific hyperscaler. We actually run in Azure. We work in AWS. We also run into OVH Cloud. So for us, it's not a concern. And so when you look at Cloud Smart, you really want to make sure that you don't put private cloud against public cloud. It's a cohabitation of the two environments. So this is really what you're faced with making a decision is how do I take the best of it all? But as you're doing this, you need to make sure that you have the ability to manage all instances under one pane of glass. If you don't, it becomes a very complex environment to manage. If you look at the slide here, these are all the elements you'd be running and operating, whether it be PaaS or SaaS or Edge, and you're actually going to have your colo facilities and public cloud. But for each of those, if you have different pane of glass to manage those environments, it'll be too complex. So the best you could bring is to have a single platform using consistent construction skill sets, one skill set across all operating environment from the edge to public cloud through data centers. And here you need fluid movement of the workloads and the data. And so if you need to move a workload from your on-prem site to one public cloud site, this has to be made easily and without knowing that you're actually a user, without even knowing where the application is running. And so as you're doing this, this creates a lot of flexibility, agility, and it permits you to manage the edge, the data center, and the cloud as one view for the environment completely. Now, obviously, you will see that Broadcom, VMware was really the de facto player in the industry for many years. Not many people actually changed that status quo. They liked running VMware. There was no issues running it, and so you don't want to make changes around that. And status quo was probably the biggest roadblock for Nutanix in market, being VMware evidently. And so when the acquisition came about, what we noticed is that obviously the licensing structure, the cost structure, going from life of device to subscription, changing licensing from processor or socket to core, that increased pricing all the time. And now we've seen pricing going up to 5, 6, 10 times the cost. And so customers are looking to de-risk that footprint of VMware within their organization. And Nutanix is clearly an alternative around that. And so Gartner produced a paper, a technical review around it's called the Battle of Five Armies, where they're actually highlighting the fact that, it's going to be a battle of five groups, the three hyperscalers, Google, Azure, and AWS, and VMware and Nutanix. These are going to be the major players running distributed cloud and strategies. And obviously here, it's also a bit of a statement that even the public cloud providers are saying that it will not be only public cloud. It will be a hybrid multi-cloud play. And this is what is suggesting is Gartner is seeing and recognizing that Nutanix is clearly the alternative from an on-prem perspective to our organizations across all sectors. And so when you look at platform functionalities that you're finding here, typically if you're looking for your software stack, you're going to look at the hypervisor evidently, right? This is the first thing everybody's concerned with, but you have to look at all the features around data services, around networking services, DR, business continuity, and which is standard. And that will be what we call infrastructure services, right? Obviously, that includes storage services that you would have. Then there's a question of how do you manage it all, right? How do you automate the processes? How do you orchestrate it? How do you create your self-service portal and catalog of services? That comes what we call, the cloud management piece. And so once you have all of this, you have a perspective of your cloud platform. So you actually have a piece for infrastructure, a piece for management, and then you manage it all. So when you look at what it looks like on a Broadcom perspective, on the left side, we have the matching comparison with on the right side. So what we want to share here is that if customers are looking at changing from Broadcom VMware to Nutanix, all the elements that you require on a platform functionality is delivered by Nutanix and more. I say this because Nutanix is a more modern, innovative platform, being younger, not bringing legacy pieces with it. And so this is where we make a big difference. And so it's about saying to customers, how do you de-risk your organization when you look at the application stack of Broadcom? Well, look at Nutanix and we match it. And we're able to offer those same services and to deliver a software-defined data center in a way easier fashion. The good news, we are able to manage, again, Nutanix across all operating environment, from the robo perspective, edge, into the public cloud, which if you're going to be running a VMware instance in Azure and running a VMware instance in AWS, you won't be able to see under one single pane of glass both instances. This is where Nutanix is really shining. You're able to see all instances of running a Nutanix environment, and that is very, very simple to do. Now, obviously here, when we look at the dilemma of how do I move from VMware to Nutanix, and why do I de-risk this? So obviously, when customers have an acquired VMware, some customers will have had ESX and vCenter, right? That's fine. Some will have all that plus vSAN, and some will have adaptive VCF. First and foremost, moving VMs from VMware to Nutanix is a very easy process. And so we have tools that permits to do this on the fly. It's called Move, not very original, but that's really what it is. So it really facilitates moving from a ESX VM into a AHV virtualized environment. Now, I'll even share more in this. When a customer uses ESX in production, sometimes for a reason or another, they want to keep ESX on the production, VMware on the production, but they want to de-risk it even more and remove some of the costs. We have customers that actually have adopted a VMware ESX in production, but the DR is actually running AHV, and that's well supported and documented. We have all the reference architectures, validated designs to do this, and de-risk completely moving from VMware to Nutanix. Evidently, when you're actually doing this, we also have all the education courses to permit facilitating the transition or knowledge from VMware individuals to Nutanix. Now, obviously, are we well positioned? Well, the market is certainly sharing that we are. We have been leading the market, removing the silos in the data center. And so we can see that VMware and Nutanix are toe-to-toe. Well, while we recognize that VMware has been there longer, and so number of customers is certainly higher, Nutanix is a bit more, has a better strategy to execute that environment. So how do you reduce cost and complexity? The first thing and foremost is to simplify your environment. First and foremost, reduce the technologies you're using. You'll have less silos to manage. So when you do some firmware upgrades, data center, you won't have to have downtime around that. We have what we call one-click upgrades. We will take care of the software and the hardware, as opposed to just taking care of the hardware for each siloed technology you have and the software. But as you're doing this, reducing and simplifying your environment by reducing the number of technologies, you're reducing the number of management plane you'll have. Right off the bat, you're actually saving from 40 to 60%. When we talk transformation is about improving KPIs in the order of magnitude higher than 35%. If you're not doing this, you're just tinkering with the environment. It's if you're using 10 gig switches and you go to 25 gig switches, you won't see a 50% increase. You'll improve performance, but not the KPIs. So number of technologies being reduced, number of management planes, and really that's how you reduce your cost and complexity. Moving completely to a Nutanix footprint is very significant. You'll be able to reduce savings or increase savings to up to 80%.
Hey, Denis, sorry to interrupt. Just a quick time check. We have about 6 minutes.
All right, so we're good to go. Here's a real hybrid cloud platform. Closing off on this, you're running Nutanix on-prem. You can actually run Nutanix at the edge and your co-location environments. AWS and the public cloud Azure. We have OVH Cloud also. And then you can actually move your workloads and data across all of those workloads, operating environments, giving you a real advantage and agility. Same skill sets, tools, processes, seamless flow of workloads across all your operating environments. Our goal is to make sure that you can run on any infrastructure, any hyperscaler. You can create your application once and run them everywhere. And this is a nuance between what we could do between Nutanix and VMware. Randy.
Thank you. I'm just going to close off with a couple of slides focusing on CDW's ability to help deliver this within your infrastructure and the cloud. And very much to echo David's concept of the cloud experience, the cloud operating model, simplifying not only the view of resources, but the ability to scale, repurpose hardware, switch hypervisors, which is a big topic of our discussion here. For example, if we have Nutanix deployed with VMware, we can switch out those hypervisors and switch to the Nutanix hypervisor. And we can scale just as easily as we deploy if we need to add nodes or repurpose nodes throughout the environment. And a lot of our services, as you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, have to do with assessing greenfield, brownfield situations, architecting what changes we want to bring in, actually implementing those changes, and then assisting with operations, including managed services, if that's something that your organization can benefit from. And on my final slide,
You went on mute, Randy.
okay, I'm back again. That's weird. So yeah, this is our I would say examples of services that we do with Nutanix. It's not comprehensive or limiting. In other words, we can do just about anything that you can imagine in a Nutanix environment. And we spend a lot of our time doing assessments, deployments, health checks, upgrades. When we move into data protection, that can be backup, that can be disaster recovery, business continuity. Many customers are using Nutanix now for data services, so being able to provide shared files, object storage for backup, for Kubernetes clusters, which is also something that we can host within the Nutanix environment, and the full ecosystem of workloads. So getting into automation tools, virtual desktops, cloud native Kubernetes. All of these things can be hosted within this enterprise cloud environment. So we have our link in the chat to fill out the survey to receive your $15 gift card towards your next cup, Joe. And we have a couple of minutes to field any questions that you might want to put into the chat. Or if anybody else wants to, any of our presenters want to add anything in here. David, any last words from you? Sorry, not David, Denis. I was reading David D'Amico, but Denis, any last words from you?
Yeah, I would actually echo, you can reach out to us at CDW around, some of proof of concepts that we could do. There are validated designs we could review and reference architecture. We have reference that can actually share their experience if you want to have that. And also, so I would encourage everybody to reach out to your CDW account manager for follow-up questions. There's a lot to be addressed around the migration from VMware to Nutanix, and we want to make sure we can make that easy. This is the alternative to have an on-prem experience, but to across all your operating environments. So CDW is there to assist, and we'll be in contact with them to address your questions. And we can have those sessions with you one-on-one also.
Yeah, and I would add, in between those levels, the one-on-one and the kind of mass presentation like this, we also have technical deep dive boot camps where we spend half a day going into lab exercises on a particular concept. We do that in person. We do that in various cities around the country. So keep an eye out for that, or you could even lobby for it to have it happen soon in your region. So that's one other way that we can connect on Nutanix. So I think we're good. Thank you everyone for attending. Once again, remember to click the link, fill out the survey. Any last questions from anybody? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everyone. Enjoy your day.
Bye.